Hi there, I'm Tom. Welcome back to the 2025 Medium Espresso edition of my Burrnament. Exciting video today because today is the grand final. After 18 months of preparation, one day of full-on execution, the production of videos, the calibration of grinders, the alignment of grinders, the seasoning of grinders, the purchase that actually came first. But anyway, a bucket load of work, so make sure you subscribe and share the love by liking. What we started off out with is what we call a round of 16, which consisted of 16 different, predominantly 64mm flat burr sets housed in the appropriate grinder. The standard grinder if it came with a standard grinder. If not, if it came without a grinder, then such as the SSP burrs, they were put into a DF64 Gen 2. These are the original burr sets and grinders we started off with. If we want to make it a bit easier for you to read, we can lay this out in the tennis tournament we started with. And here is the round of 16, each 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4, and you can see the winner from each round moves through to the quarterfinals. There is no bad burrs here, and I started by saying this right at the beginning of the series, there aren't any bad burrs here. If it was a bad burr set, it didn't get in there, and there were burr sets that I didn't put in here because I just couldn't get a decent espresso out of them. So every single burr set on here will produce a nice espresso. Nice being subjective, of course. They'll all produce a nice espresso, but I have some preferences. By and large, with the exception of the VS6 Supernova Flat, things went pretty much according to what I thought they would probably go. In other words, the blind tasting baristas, almost all of the tests were not done by myself, but rather 3 home baristas who came in and we put them through the blind test protocol, trained them how to use it, how to do the pours, make sure everything was equalized into the temperature, the flow rates, the RPM, wherever possible, were equalized between one grinder and another, so that the only differences in the cup were 2 things. One, which grinder each espresso came from, and of course, the blind tasting barista. So as many other variables as possible were eliminated. These were the quarterfinalists. You can press pause and have a look at those if you like. But I think without further ado, let's make a one step closer to the final. Semi-finals, VS6 Supernova Flat versus Super Jolly. Mazzer Super Jolly won that one. The other semi-final, SSP HU versus the ZP1, won by the ZP1. So that brings us to the final. What I like to do in the final is kind of look back on the road to the final. For the Mazzer Super Jolly, in round 1, it defeated the Keber Orion in a unanimous points decision. So 3 out of 3 blind taste testing baristas preferred the Mazzer Super Jolly over the Keber Orion. Quarterfinal, the Mizzen was beaten out in a 2-to-1 split points decision. So that's the option Oligom Mizzen, which is probably better as a hybrid burr set as opposed to just for a medium roast. Semi-final, the VS6 was defeated 3-love by the Mazzer Super Jolly. And in the final side for the ZP1, round of 16, beat the Gorilla Gear 3-zip. Quarterfinals, Mazzer 189D, split points decision 2-1. In the semi-final, beat the SSP HU Espresso Burr 3-zip. So as mentioned previously, all the baristas were not blindfolded, but were blind taste testing. They'd been trained how to use my proprietary system for making sure that every characteristic, flavor strength, body, acidity, clarity, sweetness, finish was ticked, which grinder was preferred, so I should say which espresso was preferred, and then the winner was declared for each barista, making notes hopefully if they weren't too caffeinated at that point, and then they flipped the cups over to reveal which espresso had come from which grinder. So 18 months of preparation, the purchase of many grinders as mentioned, the calibration, the seasoning, the unbelievable amount of logistics required, the getting together of all the generous home baristas who gave you the time for the day, has resulted in this grand final finally being revealed. So make sure that given the ton of work I put in, you subscribe and share it with your caffeinated friends, like it, etc. That's the way I get a bit of a reward for this. Thank you. So match 15, let's go. Mazzer Super Jolly without further ado versus the WPM ZP1. Now, it's ZP1. I cannot believe that this behemoth, this giant, this huge grinder with a relatively old design burr set is coming up against the modern, one of the most modern, best designed grinders through to the final. I have to tell you, every time the Super Jolly won, it was like, oh man, we've got to carry this thing from the espresso bench back to the waiting room and then back again. So it just kept beating out all the competitors, which is really quite phenomenal. Now, those of you who are wondering, in the Super Jolly it was the 033M burr, which is very similar, if not the same in the cup, to the 233M burr The latter just being grinding a little bit. It was introduced so that the cafes could grind a little bit faster. But other than that, as I said, pretty similar, if not the same in the cup. So let's have a look at what our blind tasting baristas noted in terms of their winner. And I'll take a little bit more time to go through this because it is the final. This was Christoph, picked the Keber burr in the ZP1. Greater flavor and more body. So this was his ratings for the ZP1 down here. Greater flavor, fuller body, more acidity. He scored the Super Jolly better for clarity and sweetness, but back to the ZP1 for a better finish. So his winner was the Keber, greater flavor and more body. Obviously that's what he prefers in a burr set. So barista number 2 was Daniel, and Daniel's rated the ZP1 as having more clarity, more sweetness and a better finish. So some things in common with the previous barista, but not all of them. The Mazzer Super Jolly he rated as being a bit better in terms of acidity, and a couple of them were actually even flavor strength and fuller body. So different baristas picking up different things in the cup, which is not unusual. Celebrate the diversity of the human experience. Stan, who's our kind of our aficionado, he's the guy who's done all the cupping training and everything else, and he imports beans and roasts them and does everything you would hope to ever do with a coffee bean. Also picked the Keber. Greater flavor strength, he said, fuller body, more acidity, more clarity, more sweetness, better finish. Every single characteristic fell in flavor of the ZP1 Keber burrs. But he did say the Super Jolly has a wide sweet spot. So that might be something to consider if you're looking for a grinder that's a bit more forgiving. That might be the Super Jolly for you. So this is the summary notes, and I've included my score here, the barista number 4 here. These are the summary notes. Christoph, more interesting, more flavor. Said that the 033M did have a smoother flavor to it. Daniel, aftertaste was smoother on the ZP1. The 033 aftertaste not quite as smooth. Number 3, the Keber burrs, and number 4, I chose the Keber burrs as well. So there we have it. We had actually not a split decision, which I thought we would have in this one. We actually had the WPM ZP1 with the Keber burrs scoring 4 out of 4 in the blind grind taste compare grand finale. So here is what the final chart looks like. Let me step that out of the way so you can see the whole thing. And of course we have our champion, which is the WPM ZP1 Keber burr. So it's time to pop the champagne corks, or in this case, don't have a champagne cork as such, because that probably wouldn't go down with a coffee Burrnament. But here are the streamers, and there we have our award for the WPM ZP1. And WPM will receive this graphic, which they'll be able to use on their website, or the resellers will be able to use it. The gold, or the grand champion of the Medium Espresso Burrnament Edition 2025 from yours truly, Tom's Grinder Labs. So there we have it, our gold medalist, our grand champion, the WPM ZP1 with the wonderful Keber burrs. Make sure you check out my review of the ZP1 on my channel in the main playlist. And in the meantime, as always, if you want to optimize your espresso, if you have any troubleshooting issues, you just need to head over to tomsgrinderlab.com, download my espresso troubleshooting and optimization guide. And hey, do me a solid, in addition to subscribing, of course, and sharing it with your caffeinated friends, make sure you put in the comments below what you would like to see next. What permanent edition, with a light roast, whether it's for milk, or maybe a dark roast espresso edition. If I get enough queries, who know, I might even do that. But let me know what sort of edition you'd like for the next Burrnament, and also if there's any particular grinders that you would like included, drop me a note and I'll see what we can do. Until then, enjoy your coffee. Cheers.